What's going on YouTube? It's Teach back again with another video. Today, I'm giving you my Week 14 NFL Power Rankings. This season is quickly coming to its close, but hopefully you all are doing okay. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you do, hit that like button, help me out a ton. And if you're new to the channel and want to see more sports content, just hit that big red subscribe button. And most importantly, comment your takeaways down in the comment section. Who do I have too high? Who do I have too low? Who do you think some of the biggest risers and fallers of this past week are? I'd love to have your thoughts. Love to talk some football with you down in the comment section. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Jags and Texans each moved down a spot, with the Lions moving up 2 spots. Congratulations, Detroit fans. You have won a football game. Welcome to the club. And because of that, you get a week where you're not 32. Congratulations. Therefore, the Texans and the Jags fall. Do these week by week. This may well revert back to what it was in previous power rankings. But for right now, give the Lions fans something to be happy about. Got the Jets and the Bears staying pat. Both lost. Disappointing with how that played out. I do think Zach Wilson played a little bit better this past weekend. And for the Bears, I don't really have anything to say there. He played one of the best teams in football, so wasn't a game you were picked to win. I guess Dalton kept it pseudo close, but I think the score made that game feel a little closer than it actually was. Giants, Falcons each down a spot after their losses, with the Seahawks moving up 2 after a big divisional win. So congratulations to Seattle. These division games are kind of weird. We'll talk about it in a little bit when we talk about Baltimore and Pittsburgh, but they can play out in a lot of different ways. And give credit to the Seahawks. Showed a lot of fight, defended the 12, and come out as the winners, proving that they're not going to be pushovers for the rest of the year. So they're up 2 spots. That brings us to team number 24, the Denver Broncos. They are down 3 spots, and you'll see there has been a whole lot of shifting between who's on this screen and who's on the next. So got some big fallers here. The Broncos down 3. That was just a really tough showing on Sunday Night Football. Javonte Williams, plenty of people have been saying this. That dude looks like a stud. And, Pat Surtain gets another pick. And I think the defense was scrappy enough. Honestly, they didn't give up a whole lot of big plays, and they forced Mahomes to play patient. The offense and Teddy Bridgewater just didn't want to put it in the end zone, right? A 20-play drive, no points to show for it. Teddy Bridgewater's making some bad mistakes, missing on throws. It's kind of what we expect out of Denver in a lot of ways, given who is under center. Carolina Panthers down 4 spots. Man, you fired Joe Brady on your bye week. I know this is tough to fall 4 spots, considering they're on their bye. But part of it is just because there has been so much shifting, and especially in this area, there's been a lot of teams that have been on the decline, a lot have been on the rise, so those stars are starting to surpass one another. So Carolina down 4 spots despite being on their bye, but you fired Joe Brady, and I'm not a big fan of that move. No, things haven't been great on the offensive side, but look at the quarterbacks he's been dealing with. Christian McCaffrey in and out of the lineup. I don't know. I don't think it's a fair situation to read out on. Maybe he wants to go back to college. We will see. But Panthers are down 4 spots. So are the Saints. This team is just kind of cooked at this point. In a lot of ways, what are they going to be able to do with Taysom Hill at quarterback the rest of the way? I don't think it's going to be all that pretty, especially considering he just got hurt. Is he even able to get back under center this upcoming week? I guess time will tell. But yeah, tough spot to be a Saints fan for sure. Raiders down 5 spots. And, what a tough way to lose that game. Nail-biter to Washington football team. And it felt like the opportunity to make it 2 wins in a row and really solidify, hey, the Raiders are not just a joke. They could be in this playoff conversation. And instead, now it makes that Thanksgiving win against Dallas look a little bit more fluky, because that's been the exception over the last 4 weeks. Since the Henry Ruggs incident, that's been the only game where they've been able to score more than 30 points in a game. So it feels like the outlier to what we now understand is not a very good offense, unless Deshaun Jackson's making unreal plays like he was on Thanksgiving. Not I don't say unreal, but making big plays and giving this offense its full arsenal of potential, given the playmakers within it. Eagles are up 4 spots. Now moving on forward feels a little drastic after, they beat up on the Jets, and, it was Gardner Minshew, but they got him a little bit too low after their loss to the Giants, but bounced back in a pretty good way and handled business. It was never really in doubt, other than maybe the opening kickoff and first drive for the Jets looked pretty good, but after that it was all Eagles the rest of the way. Gardner Minshew, I think, played pretty well, and they toted the rock. Miles Sanders, over 100 yards rushing. They committed to it, and credit to them, and then their defense was enough. And that's going to be the formula for this team, so they're up by 4 spots after the win. Minnesota down 5, and you'll see the picture on your screen. Sorry, Vikings fans, to troll, but you lose to the last winless team in the NFL, you're going to be doing some falling. And yeah, tough look for Minnesota. I don't know what Xavier Woods and Kamala Chancellor were doing on that last play, playing that far off. You got to defend, at least the front of the end zone. You have enough cushion to be able to try to get to the back line if that's where Goff is trying to put it. You play too soft and you give up the game-winning touchdown. Not a good look by any stretch. So they're down 5 spots, and it just feels like this team wants to play close games despite themselves. They're cutting off their nose despite their face. And knowing that they have had a bad track record of winning close games, they continue to find ways to put themselves into them. I don't know. Maybe it's just bad luck. Maybe it's just that much more that signals that Zimmer and that coaching staff probably need to be replaced, and Minnesota just needs to go in a new direction. San Francisco down 5 spots. Again, another disappointing loss. Minnesota and the 49ers here had chances to pick up, I don't want to call them easy wins because no win in the NFL is easy, but both playing divisional opponents. Both were favored. I get they're both on the road, but, pretty close to where they, the homestead. It's not like you're doing a whole lot of traveling. Missed opportunities is simply all it is. And these should have been wins for the 49ers and Vikings. They should have been on their way up, and they should have been, in a lot of ways, solidifying themselves as the 6th, 7th seed in whichever order you want to put them in inside the NFC. This should have been like the week where the 49ers Vikings pretty much locked up the NFC playoff picture. Instead, they lose to teams they shouldn't, and they do some falling because of it. Browns stay pat at 17. They were on their bye week, so I didn't get to see them this week. So they're one of the few bye teams that's not actually moving. On to the top 16. Miami Dolphins and Washington football team, red hot. And 6 and 8 spots moving up feels like a whole lot more than I had anticipated, but part of it is where teams are shifting down, and Miami and Washington are leapfrogging them. But man, two teams that feel really similar, finding ways to win with, call it a limited quarterback, right? Or I would say the offense is limited in its different ways. Miami's offensive line is so bad that they're pretty much, only running RPOs, and they're forcing, Tua to make that read against the defensive end. And, if they're going to pass it, they're playing 5 yards and, 5 yards at a time, or playing yak game and hoping Waddle comes up with a big run after the catch, or they're running it. And, it's worked. They've won, 5 in a row. They're going to their bye week. They play the Jets when they come off of it. It's probably going to come a 6-game win streak, and they'll be 7-7 in the mix. So give credit to Miami, picking up games that they should, and the defense in itself is playing really, really well. And same can be said about Washington. William Jackson II is playing a whole lot better, and overall that defense just looks completely different than what it was at the beginning of the year. And they're finding ways to win with Taylor Heineke, and I think Scott Turner's done a really good job finding ways to maximize an offense that lives basically 15 yards or closer every once in a while. And that's not to say Heineke won't push it down the field to Terry McLaurin, but this is an offense that feels like it's the only one in the NFL that can maximize the value of Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick, and Curtis Samuel. 2 running backs, and then, this gadget wide receiver running back player. It feels like the only offense that could really maximize that because of how much they do screen-wise, jet sweep, getting the ball short into those guys' hands and letting them make the plays after the catch. So they found ways to create an offense that works for that team and how it's built and their identity. So credit to both these teams, and their defenses are certainly stealing the shows. Titans on a bye week, but they move up a spot due to some of the shifting. Congratulations, Titans fans. Steelers up 7 spots. Now, again, I do this week to week. I am a Steelers fan. I don't think this is going to be where they stay long term, but they did knock off the team I had as the number 1 team in the AFC last week. So that is a win that deserves credit and recognition. And there were moments down the stretch where it felt like a old school Steelers game. They were able to run the football on that last drive. Najee looked good. Kendrick Green looked pretty good, and that's why they spent a 3rd round pick on him. Right, get that run blocking center, paved the way up the middle, and that's what it was down the stretch. So that's a really positive sign if you're a Steelers fan. And Big Ben was able to make some throws in this game. Now, he wasn't great, and still the best of Big Ben nowadays is like passable quarterback play, when it used to be like this is the best player of the week, basically. AFC player of the week type of accolades. He had that drop pass from Deontay Johnson. That was a dime. And then even down the stretch, just engineering and be the maestro of that drive for Pittsburgh to take the lead late. That felt like a old school Big Ben, we're going to take down the Ravens type of drive. It had that feel to it. The defense almost choked it away at the end. And in a lot of ways, Baltimore should have won this game. We'll talk about that once we get to 11. But if the Ravens are a little more crisp, they come out as the victors. But another big injury for Baltimore too. But give credit to Pittsburgh getting back on track after a disappointing loss to the Bengals, who come in at number 12. tough week for them, and this is exactly what I talked about in my picks video, and you can go back to it if you don't believe me. The Chargers and the Bengals are just wildly inconsistent teams, and I think this game told that story for you. It's a 24-0 run to start the day for the Chargers, and then the Bengals come back with 22 unanswered points and have the opportunity to tie the game, and then it ends up being a double-digit victory for the Chargers. Not even within their own week can these teams play just a full, consistent game of football. The Bengals are going to be up and down, and I think that partially comes from a young team that hasn't gotten to see a whole lot of wins, right? I see that within broadcasting where teams are getting used to what it feels like to win games, and that feels like a similar situation where you find the Bengals and maybe that Zach Taylor too, needing to learn how to shift his coaching mindset, right? But that said, I think I like the Bengals to win the AFC North as it stands right now. I just think there's the smallest caveat. Every AFC North team has their own asterisk they're leading on, their if statement that they need to hit. And I feel like the Bengals is the one with the smallest. For the Browns, it's like you need Baker Mayfield to find himself. For the Steelers, you need Big Ben to go on this late career push and revitalize his career. For the Ravens, you need Lamar Jackson playing at MVP level to overcome all the injuries you've now accumulated. We'll talk about that now. Marlon Humphrey seemingly out for the year, a huge loss for a defense that's already beat up. Meanwhile, for the Bengals, their caveats like finding a way to be consistent, and that is just like the smallest if statement to lean on. So I think I might go with the Bengals to win the AFC North. I don't know. It's gonna be tight the rest of the way. For sure, a lot of interdivision games. But despite the loss, Bengals lost to a good team overall. Ravens at 11. Like I said, you lose Marlon Humphrey. That is a huge loss, and that was part of the reason John Harbaugh wanted to go for too late. He didn't feel comfortable or that he had enough corners to go to overtime. That's unbelievable. Plus, playing on the road, I think that played a factor in it as well, not having the home crowd and whatnot. But now it comes down to Lamar Jackson, right? And I say this as somebody who just last week was saying the reason I think the Ravens are the best team in the AFC is because when you make it a game of 10 yards, they're impossible to stop, it feels like. And this past week, that kind of proved me wrong because they got behind the chains a ton. That said, Pittsburgh's third down and long defense was just, it makes you want to rip your eyes out if you're a Steelers fan. Gave up a ton of those third and long plays, and including on the final drive, 3rd and 14, big connection between Lamar and Hollywood Brown moves the chains, leads them to that game-tying touchdown situation, and then the 2-point attempt kind of capped off what I saw from the Ravens this past week. They just aren't crisp. They're not executing as they should. A lot of pre-snap penalties in this game. Lots of drops. Lots of missed throws from Lamar. And I am somebody who marvels at his ability as a football player. He's one of the toughest players to defend in the league. But from maybe week 5 or 6 onward, that accuracy has gone wayward. Early in the year, you were seeing big plays with Hollywood Brown. He was working with Sammy Watkins as their possession. And it was all clicking. Mark Andrews got onto a big start of the year. The passing game was there. Since that point onward, week 5, week 6 to where we are now, Jackson just misses too many throws. He puts receivers in bad spots trying to hold on to tough catches that shouldn't be. I don't know. And unless Baltimore can reinvigorate that passing attack, they might continue to keep falling because at this point, the injuries, I think, might have hit a critical mass. And we're at a spot now where if the AFC playoff picture is the ocean, I think the Ravens are starting to sink their way out of the conversation due to not having enough of their star players. And it's going to take Lamar Jackson playing like an MVP to try to keep them afloat in my eyes. And we'll see. It's been a tough stretch of late, and he hasn't been playing like that, unfortunately, if you're a Baltimore fan. Chargers are staying pat at 10 here. This really comes as an effect because I kind of goofed last week. I was literally looking at the scores, and I didn't account for them losing. They should not have been at 10 last week. They should have definitely been down a few spots. But then they pick up a big road win against Cincinnati. So, it works out in itself, and that kind of sums up what I think about the Chargers. There's going to be weeks where they put it all together and they look really good, and then there's going to be weeks where, despite the talent on the field, they just don't put it together. They don't figure it out, or the game plan's not there, or a couple of those fourth downs don't convert, whatever the case may be, and it just stalls them out completely, and they just never get off the ground. So it's a tough team to try to peg week to week because of that inconsistent nature, but overall, the sum of their parts, I think they're right around that top 10 team conversation. Bills are staying at 9. I know they lost on Monday Night Football, but the Patriots are playing red hot, and honestly, I don't want to say I'm encouraged coming to that game for Buffalo, but I feel like I only learned one data point coming out of that game. I now know what the Bills look like, matched up against a team that is perfectly built to slow down Buffalo. in a weather situation that is perfectly designed to give Buffalo problems, right? This is a team that wants to spread it out, chuck the football, put the ball into Josh Allen's hands, and 25 plus mile an hour winds and snow are not the weather situation you want to find yourself in if that's your game plan. And New England's one of the best defenses in football. Bill Belichick gives young quarterbacks headaches. They're the exact team, and they run the football really, really well, and they can just take the air out of the game and milk the clock. They feel like the exact team and like the exact formula to try to slow down Buffalo, and they still only lost by 4. Now, part of that's just because the game was never going to be that high scoring, therefore the margin was never going to be that stretched out. But I feel like I only learned what the Bills look like against a team that is built to stop them, and in a weather situation that is the absolute worst for them, and nothing else. I don't know. I still think this is a good football team, and if anything, coming out of this loss, I think they might be reinvigorated a little bit more. And we're now on to the top 8 with the Indianapolis Colts up 4 spots, and this team is getting the absolute most value out of its current roster and its construction. So a ton of credit there to Frank Reich. The defense is playing fantastic, and I know they beat up on the Texans. I'm really glad this was the game I saw the fewest of, right? There's always one game a week where naturally that's the game you saw the least of, and fortunately enough, it was Indy and Houston for me. But the Colts handled business, and they absolutely destroyed a division rival. They'll get another look at them, and because of that's some great value wins right there and against the AFC South. They're going to get some easy ones down the stretch. They do have some tough ones, including them and the Patriots are on their bye this week. Then they take on one another in 2 weeks' time. That'll be a fun one, but like I said, the defense is playing really well. Matt Eberflus has done a good job coaching up that unit. Jonathan Taylor is the offense with Michael Pittman really emerging. He was on my breakout candidates list, and I was a big Michael Pittman fan coming out of USC. But he's exceeded my expectations, which has done wonders for this offense. I still think they could use a number 2 wide receiver, take some work off of his shoulders, but it's working right now. You pound the rock with Jonathan Taylor. He scored in 10 consecutive games. It's crazy. Then play action. You have Michael Pittman. You have the tight ends, Nyheim Hines even. There's pieces for Carson Wentz to work with, and he's done a good job for the most part, not turn the football over. So the Colts, big risers and making themselves a scary team to face once we get to the postseason. Cowboys, Chiefs, Rams, Pats, all up a spot. Let's start with the Cowboys. Take care of business against the Saints. Now the Saints are a team that we should all be fading. They're dwindling, but the Cowboys still handle business, and that deserves credit in its own right. Chiefs, good win against the Broncos on Sunday Night Football. The offense still wasn't anything, earth-shattering. Other than that first drive, looked pretty clinical. They got the defense touchdown in there, so you could still be worried about the offense. But at this point, the Chiefs' defense is starting to seem pretty legit. Now, I don't know if they're going to be, a squad that holds team to single digits week in and week out. But if they can hold teams to 16 or less or somewhere in that vicinity, I think the offense is still good enough to make that happen. And that said, especially early on, Kansas City felt and looked comfortable playing underneath, getting the ball to CEH, using screens, and maybe that builds more and more as the year goes on, and week by week they get more and more comfortable taking 5 yards and forcing defenses to respect their underneath game. The Rams are up a spot, pulled away from the Jags. Congratulations, LA. This is a game they should have won, made total sense, and they beat up on Jacksonville. So you could call it a get-right win. I know it definitely probably washes out some of the bad taste from recent losses for LA, so I'm sure it felt good for the Rams to beat up on somebody, but this was never a game that made you question their identity and who they are as a team. I want to see them do it against a playoff caliber squad, and then we'll have a different talk. But I still respect this team and what their potential could be. Patriots move up to number 4. They won a tough, gritty game. Now, I talked about the Pats feel like they're the perfect, formula or matchup against the Bills, and the weather certainly played into New England's hands, but they took care of business, and they did it with throwing the football 3 times. I would have never said that. I'm a big, chuck it around the yard, throw the football as often as you can, but they won a game with 3 passes, and that was really, really impressive. Really only can happen with that type of weather, but give credit to Damian Harris, the offensive line. That touchdown early on proved to be the difference, right? And then a couple of field goals sealed the deal, and that's a big win. And another win in the long win streak for the Pats, and they're seriously, well, now they're the number 1 seed already, but they're putting together a heck of a resume to potentially be seen as the best team in the AFC, and that's where I got them at right now. The Bucks, Packers, and Cardinals all stay put at 3-2-1 respectively. The Bucks, other than that, pick right before the break against Atlanta, I never really felt like that game was in doubt. Atlanta always owns, or Tom Brady always owns the Falcons, if I could speak. And it was another week of that. Packers on a bye, and then the Cardinals looked pretty good against Chicago. It was good to see DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray back out there. Both think they played pretty well. Neither was asked to do anything that crazy, right? Nice touchdown early on for D-Hop, and then just 15 pass attempts for Kyler Murray, but they used his legs as well to get the rushing touchdown, that read option play pretty late in the contest, and it was the dagger of sorts. So Arizona still clicking and still looking like maybe the best team, or in my eyes, the best team in the NFL. But that's part of the discussion. I'd love to have your thoughts down in the comment section. Tell me what you think of my power rankings. Who do I have too high? Who do I have too low? Who do you think some of the biggest risers and fallers of this past week should be? Hopefully you all enjoyed, and if you did, hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. And if you're new to the channel, want to see more sports content, hit that big red subscribe button. That's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. Till next time, my name is Tej, and I'm signing off.